in the defense of nihilism. This is a video I hope will not take too long. I want to explain why nihilism, in my opinion, is not wrong, and in fact it should be encouraged in the minds of people, specifically in the minds of young people, children. Nihilism is the idea of the Übermensch, the idea of the overman, of the superman, the idea of, or the set of ideas to be more precise, of the people that understand the nature of reality and accept it to its entirety and act likewise. Nihilism, in the truest sense, is not just the postmodern things that you might hear from some people. Things like only the emotion matters, only what you feel like matters. No, nihilism is more like a master reset against the decadent culture employed by all forms of socialism. Friedrich Nietzsche talked about it, Max Stirner talked about it, and to some extent we could see that Ragnar Redbeard talked about it, even though he did have some weird opinions at some points. Nihilism basically is the idea that you should bring down from the high hill of the abstract any idea that is considered divine, any idea that is considered above the rest. It is not exactly egalitarianism in the realm of ideas. It is more like a master reset. We go back to the basics of human logic and we form rules based on logic, but based on actual logic and not on not necessarily on things like the Kantian categorical imperative. That's my problem with the people that are bashing nihilism, is basically that they don't understand what it is about, or they are afraid of it. They show intellectual fear. Most of these people tend to be nationalists. And of course, it's natural for them to be nationalists because a nationalist believes in an abstract idea, the idea of the nation or the idea of the race. And yes, the race is an abstract idea, just like anything that is not rooted deeply in real elements, in elements of reality. Now, race is rooted at some form in elements of reality, but the way used as a word, as a terminology by racists, by nationalists, it is, in effect, something that departs from the realm of reality. It is something that becomes an abstract idea, the race. And what can you do for the race? Everything. You are willing to sacrifice for the race. And in this regard, I do accept the idea of Ayn Rand, which is be careful when people are asking for your sacrifice, and be careful when they are talking about collectives, about let us do this for the nation or for the proletariat or for the race. Let us have a racially pure state, or a state that is completely ethnically homogeneous. That, of course, is not to say that other abstracts like humanity are more valid. Well, you could say they're more valid in the terms that you can actually tell when a person is a person when we're talking about a human being and when we're talking about an animal or some kind of entity with no life, like a stone. You can tell that, and I mean the difference is black and white. When you treat a dog, the dog will never reach the heights of a human being. When you're taking care of a dog, the dog will never have the potential of being self-sustaining, and by that I mean creative. I mean, for example, making tools for itself. Now, many animals have this ability, but this is none of our business. What I wanted to talk about was the reasons nihilism is good. Nihilism is good because we need this Stirnerite way of thinking, this battle against the abstract. What we can see mainly is a bunch of people, and I'm talking about the core of nationalists, the people that, and also the people that support in a way the writings of Julius Evola and many others of his kind. They are people who put values on things, just like every other human being, and they believe that these values are somehow universal. They believe that the value of culture is universal and that there is a positive and negative scale. Now, when it comes to personal preference, I do have a scale of what is preferable, but when it comes to the reality, the world is amoral. The world is amoral, and not only that, but capitalism, in the strictest sense, is amoral. It is something that goes beyond black and white. In fact, it is not on that spectrum. A good reading for this is definitely definitely Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus of Ludwig Wittgenstein. I believe that his points, especially in the last statements, were very good, and they were very decent in leading us to results like nihilism in a way, and in understanding concepts like agnosticism. Now, agnosticism is a form of nihilism. It is the statement that we cannot perceive whether or not God exists. It is outside of our frame of reference. It is completely out of the question, so to speak. And that means that you can say you believe in God, you can say you don't believe in God, but both ideas are invalid, and both ideas are right. They're both right and wrong, because you can't prove them. But the problem when nihilism is attacked is that people, as I said, are afraid. They are afraid that if this whole deconstruction element, this deconstructive element comes into the minds of people, if people start thinking like that, an element that I might add is called, and quite rightly so, critical thinking. The people that are against nationalism, against nihilism, are against actual critical thinking, because of course if they were supporting critical thinking, they would have to understand that you have to start from the nihil, from the nihil, or zero. And of course there is also the idea of David Hume, the idea about the is-ought dichotomy. We can say that there is a difference of IQ, an average difference of IQ between races. We can say that. We can say anything. We can say that blacks are more likely to commit crimes. We can say that whites are more likely to produce, let's say, culture in a way. But in both cases, that does not mean there is an ought involved. There is not an ought clause there. You cannot say, well, since this is happening, we should do that. And I'm saying that because mainly the people that are advocating all these attacks, people that are at the front of such attacks, are people that generally are supporting the state. And the state is, of course, the creation of non-nihilists. Any nihilist will understand that the state is the father of all ghosts of the mind, as Max Stirner said. I'm an anarcho-capitalist, but I do appreciate the Stirnerite way of thinking. Thus, it is important as nihilists to understand that we should not be bound to anything, not even something like human obligations or racial solidarity. We should not be the objects of any such law or the subjects or whatever. Because in reality, in all such cases, we're talking about some people advocating for the state and some people suggesting that your purposes in life are not important to them. And not only that, because if it was just that, we would just say, okay, no problem. In a free society, they're allowed to think what they think. But they think that they should have you pay for their choices and for their own hierarchy of needs. And this is precisely why they're saying, let's form a state, or let's go to a specific place and form a state, or I don't know, the fact that immigrants have to leave Europe and the United States. If anything, we should be worrying that their good motives are not actually good after all, and that they pave the way for a lot of elements of totalitarianism. They pave the elements for the institution of specific features in the society that have caused enormous damage in the past. How can we battle the non-nihilists? We can battle them, we can attack them, we can deconstruct their opinions by exactly that, deconstruction. By constantly asking why. We should ask why we should sacrifice for our kinsmen, quote unquote, of course. We should ask why we should sacrifice for a fellow human being. And of course, we should ask that because, first of all, we don't know that human being. We're talking about an abstract value. The human being. It's even the moment you think of it, it's dehumanized in a very real way, because we're just talking about a generic human existence. We're not talking about an individual with his own dreams, his own hopes, his own desires, and all that, and his own fears. We're talking about a homogeneous concept, and that's what is happening with the ideas of racism. They become eventually ideas that destroy individual achievement and individual identity. If anything, the true voice of diversity is neither nationalism nor internationalism. It is a very strict individualism. And individualism is the only movement, the only idea that is, of course, consistent with nihilism, first of all, and secondly, an idea that supports true diversity. If these people, and by these people I mean collectivists in general, I include nationalists in this, I include racists in this, these people are in fact going against the individual. In fact, anybody who is advocating some kind of state function is in effect speaking against individual rights. And there might be a lot of people who disagree with this, a lot of people who might say, well, we support individual rights, but there has to be a state for this, or for the national identity, or so that we protect our industry and all that. This is neither here nor there, because in reality, it's not about the collective. It's not about that. We have to understand the basic purpose, if we can say that there is a purpose of life, of the human existence. The basic purpose is that we reproduce and we dominate. Just like Friedrich Nietzsche suggested, there is a will to power, and we needed to dominate other species. We needed to win the struggle of life, and we have won. We have won in a devastating way, in a way that has allowed us, for the first time in millennia, to have free time, to have time to think and invest in things that might be trivial to a primitive person. These are the results of individualism, and since, of course, we have reached a point where the planet has 7 billion people, it is obvious that there is no struggle for survival, for crying out loud, and it is obvious that there is no point in desperately trying to support models that are outdated. They are outdated. The tribalistic mentality is outdated. I know that some people might say it's biological to be tribalistic. That may as well be the case. That does not limit people, not to mention that in the current day and age, we have the potential of changing our nature. And I'm not saying that in a Marxist sense. I'm saying that in the sense that we can finally change our own existence. We can change rapidly the course of history in a way that was preceded only by the agricultural and the industrial revolutions. The debates whether or not IQ is heritable, the debates whether or not there are elements that are heritable, they are interesting debates. And I do enjoy listening to opinions about these topics. But in the end of the day, it is the environment that influences the human being and the efficiency of human beings. In the end of the day, genetics are a result of the environment. A very slow result, but a result nonetheless. All these people, and mainly people who believe in predestination, I would say people with a Calvinist background or Protestant in a wider way, they're afraid of nihilism, and they are afraid of it not because of what the Catholics or other denominations of Christianity or the Muslims might think. Well, the Muslims are closer. These people are afraid of nihilism because they defend abstract opinions, abstract ideas, and if you dare attack these abstract ideas, it's like attacking the ego of a man, the pseudo-ego, as we could see in the movie Revolver of Guy Ritchie. You try to show somebody that he's misled, and he thinks that you're attacking him, so he wants to pretty much kill you, to erase you. Now, I'm not saying that nihilism should be treated as a religion, like, have you put the zero in your lives? Do you know that the great zero is watching you, and all that? No, I'm not saying that. I am saying we as nihilists should be acting as if nihilism is an anti-religion, as if it is an idea that is by definition opposed to religion in general, and of course opposed to any ideas of ought, any oughts that supersede the individual will. These are the ghosts that have led humanity, and by humanity this time I mean mostly the Western civilization, to a grinding halt. And the Western civilization is not that special. In fact, it is not special at all if one comes to think that the most special thing of the civilization of the West is the alphabet. And the alphabet was not at all a Western invention. But the Western civilization is suffering. And it's suffering precisely because of the lack of nihilism, because of the lack of understanding that in the end of the day, those people that are not nihilists essentially want you to subscribe to their ideas, their plans. They want you to put down your own urges for what you think is right and follow their plans. Now, their plans might be anything, and we can see that even in the anarchist perspective. For example, when it comes to economics, I'm not a nihilist, or perhaps I am in a different sense. But my ideas as an anarcho-capitalist, they are ideas I want to impose. Thus, at some level, we are all authoritarian. And nihilism has to do with understanding that you just want to replace one power structure with another. Yeah, sure, you want to replace the state, and you want to replace the state with another power structure. Now, the communists might not explicitly say that, but they will say that once you have cornered them. They will say that their power structure is the dictatorship of the proletariat, or that it's the freedom of anybody to go and take the stuff from somebody else just because. I don't believe in property. Boo, something like that. Now, a nihilist does not have a position on that. The only nihilist position that I could think of is the might is right position. The position that the only things you have a right on are the things that you have the might to protect them. If you have the might that is capable, that allows you to protect a certain piece of property, then it's yours. But in the current state of affairs, this is not possible because we're dealing with a power structure that is punishing anybody who dares deviate, anybody who dares say, this is mine, fuck you, in a very egotistical way, in a very individualistic way, saying, fuck you, this is mine. This is a basic thing necessary for humanity to go forward and not backward. It is necessary that we liberate ourselves and we say, no, I don't have any obligations to any collective. I don't have obligations. I did not sign any contracts. I did not become chained to any such contracts because I never signed such contracts. I have no pact with my race or my nation or my class or my sex, and I call it sex and not gender because I don't accept the bullshit of social justice warriors. This is the nihilist idea. And how can this be negative? This is the most positive thing in the world. It is the idea that has allowed people like Roger Bacon to form their scientific method. The scientific method is a result of nihilism. In fact, all the advances of humanity since the beginning of time, basically, are owed to the fact that some people could think nihilistically. So saying that this is to be blamed is like saying that human progress, and by human progress I mean technological progress, is to be blamed. And yes, definitely there are elements that are true here, as Winnerbomber has said, but nobody says that it's necessary for this totalitarian order to exist with technology. What we need is a paradigm shift. What we need is to rethink of the models we have in our minds of how society should work and evolve a system, an idea that is more viable. Now, I know I might be sounding like a Marxist here, and Marx was indeed right in a very general concept, the concept that the current order is not something we like. And in fact, even then, it was not something we should have liked, even the anarcho-capitalists. His solutions were wrong, of course, because the only model that could work in this world is the nihilistic model, the model that, when it comes to ethics, is strictly nihilistic, and when it comes to economics, it is anarchic. And by that I mean no fixed order, no fixed economic order, no authorities in the economy. That's all I want to say. I hope I was not too much all over the place, and I will be back at some point soon. Thank you for listening.